I'd like to call our Board of Legislators meeting for July 12th to order and ask if Legislator Dwight Fanton would lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And if Legislator David Decker would give the invocation today.
Certainly will. Bow your heads and pray with me. Father God, we just thank you for this day that you've given us, a day to come together and with all of our efforts to run the county that we live in and to take so much delight in. We thank you, Lord, that you will be with us as we contemplate all these different resolutions. And Lord, please be with our troops and our law enforcement. These are the people that put their lives out there every day to make sure that we are safe. Lord, we ask that you would be with them as they come to work and as they go home at night and rest their heads. And we just thank you for all the efforts that they do. We ask all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Legislator Fanton and Legislator Decker. Roll call.
Mr. Barnes.
Present.
Mrs. Burdick. Mr. Crandall.
Here.
Mr. Curran.
Here.
Mr. Decker.
Here.
Mr. Dibble.
Here.
Mr. Fanton.
Here.
Mr. Graves.
Here.
Mr. Harris.
Here.
Mr. Havey.
Here.
Mr. Healy.
Here.
Mrs. Hopkins.
Here.
Mr. Ricky.
Here.
Mrs. Root. Here. Mr. Stockin.
Here.
14 present, 1 absent. You were provided a copy of the Committee of the Whole meeting minutes of June 28th. At this time, we need a motion to approve those minutes.
Motion is made by Legislator Decker, seconded by Legislator Dibble. Discussion? All in favor of their approval say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried and the minutes are approved.
You were provided a copy of the board meeting minutes of June 28th, and we need a motion to approve those minutes.
Motion is made by Legislator Harris, seconded by Legislator Havey. Discussion? All in favor of their approval say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried, and those minutes are approved.
And you were provided a copy of the Committee of the Whole meeting minutes of July 7th, and we need a motion to approve those minutes.
Motion is made by Legislator Fanton, seconded by Legislator Graves. Discussion? All in favor of their approval say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried, and those are passed as well. Privilege of the floor, live and in person once again. We've only had a few of these, and it's just feels great to have the board room back somewhat to normal, and people, the department heads and others coming into the meeting. And at this time, I am glad to welcome our Allegheny County Fair President, Karen Tripp, and appreciate greatly that Karen is here. I think that this upcoming fair that we're going to hear a little bit about, and everyone has a little postcard on their desk, and it was very nice of you to put a picture of Kathy and I as we first started going together on the front of this. But anyways, I think this will be the 12th year, if Brenda is correct, and I don't ever argue with Brenda. We missed last year, but when we first started talking about doing this, having our meeting at the Allegheny County Fair, which is next Thursday.
Yeah.
2 o'clock next Thursday. It wasn't a simple task for the fair board or for this board. And it was talked about a couple of years before we really got our resolutions and acts together, and the fair board could work us in, and that they had commitment enough from us to say, yes, we're going to be there at 2 o'clock Thursday, set up the mini theater and have our meeting there. And I just think it's been a great start to a good tradition of this board going to the fair, having a regular board meeting there, not some kind of a mock meeting, being able to tip our hat to some members of the fair board that we know work on that facility and programs year-round. It's just been a great thing, I think, for both parties. The fair itself, we know that is just a huge tourism and economic driver in Allegheny County, the number of people that come through that. And I am there every day. I see the people that come and go, and it's a lot of them. And we know that you were on pause last year, as were all the fairs across New York. And again, it's just so great to know that you're back in action. So I want to turn it over to you, but I couldn't help but ramble. So Karen, the floor is yours.
Thank you. First, I want to thank the board, and I find it pretty amazing, actually, the board's cooperation, because we weren't able to announce that we were going to have a fair until May 19th. That's less than 60 days ago, and we have everything organized, everything set. I think it's going to be a super fair. The postcard that I handed out, the front, I want to give credit to Nora Wilson Wheeler. She put together that composite for us in 2019. They're actual scenes from the fair. And when we received that, I asked her if she would allow us to use it in our advertising, and she said yes. So hence the photo on the postcard and our advertising that way. As far as the people that go to the fair, if you've ever been to the domestic building, Ellen has a sign-in book for people that come. And I believe it was 2019, we had people from 27 states and 2 foreign countries. So it's not just an Allegheny County fair. It brings in a lot of people. We're hoping this year is a super one. Like you said, we weren't able to have a fair last year. It's been interesting putting a fair together in 60 days, but thankfully we've had a lot of support from our entertainers, and they've stayed in contact with us, and they didn't bail on us like what happened to some other fairs. I'm sure you're all aware that Chautauqua County Fair is not taking place. One of their problems is they lost their entertainment to Ohio because Ohio was open and New York State was not. So we're pretty fortunate. We will be having truck pull on Monday night. It is not the Western New York Pro Farm Pullers that we've had in the past years, but they disbanded due to COVID. But it should be pretty much the similar classes, and we will be doing the local gas and diesel truck pull afterwards. The horse pull is on Tuesday. We're doing something a little bit different on Wednesday, where we've got lawnmower pulls, and when I saw pictures of those lawnmowers, they're not like any lawnmowers I've ever seen. So that should be pretty interesting to watch. Thursday, we have the Broken Bee Rodeo back. Friday, we have the Outlaw Pulling Series, which features semi-trucks. And Saturday, we'll have our Demolition Derby. Pricing is a little different this year. Our rides are separate. We put the gate admission at $10 per person for anyone over the age of 3. And we have done a $5 discount day on Wednesday, which will be for children, seniors, everybody that walks through the gate will do it at $5, and that is all day long. That should hopefully help out those individuals that maybe are a little tight on money and have a big family and can't afford the $10 per person. They can come on Kids Day on Wednesday, have half-price gate and the rides will start at noon on Wednesday. So we're looking to have a good fair. Last year was tough. Like any other business, we still had costs that we could not get rid of. For the fairgrounds to sit there for a year with nothing cost us about $23,000. And that was just utilities. Fair board members and their families volunteered, did all the mowing, all the repairs, maintenance on the grounds. Even the gentleman that we had as our main grounds person last year, he volunteered all last year just so that the fairgrounds would still appear neat and tidy, even though it wasn't able to be used. So kudos to all those people and the fair board members that have lived at the fairgrounds for the last 4 weeks. You can go up there anytime, and there's somebody up there painting or cleaning or fixing. We have made a few changes. We took out one end of the Milton Jennings building, the far end that always seemed to be a little bit dark. We've opened it wide open. I think you'll like seeing what we've done up there. So, again, to all of you, thank you. We appreciate everything that you do for us.
Thank you. Legislator Barnes have a question, comment?
Not a question, I have a comment. I'm sure you're going to have 6 beautiful days because the heavens have just about emptied.
Well, if anybody here has any pull with the man upstairs, we would appreciate it. But the 10-day, right now, the 10-day is showing like 1 or 2 days with 37% or so chance, and the rest of them down in the 20s. So if it rains between midnight and 4 a.m., we're good.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for having me.
Legislator Graves, can I borrow your truck Monday night? At this time, I'd like to invite our probation director, Robert Starks, to come forward and wants to talk a little bit about pretrial probation and parole supervision week. Bob, welcome.
Thank you.
The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. I wrote it out so I wouldn't ramble.
Is that
Sure.
a shot? Is that a shot at me?
No, absolutely not. Chairman Crandall, members of the board, and Allegheny County citizens. Chairman Crandall will soon read a proclamation that July 18th through the 24th is pretrial probation and parole week. I want to take just a couple of minutes to extol the hard work of the Allegheny County Probation Department employees. Some of their duties are they write investigation reports for the family and criminal courts. They write pretrial investigation reports for criminal courts. They provide supervision of defendants, principals, and respondents. Now, just so you understand, principals are not the people that some of us may have had to visit when we were in school. Okay? Principal is now the terminology that they use courtesy of bail reform. When an individual's been arrested but has not yet been convicted, they are now referred to as principals. So we've learned a new terminology here with bail reform. The officers are the eyes and ears for the courts. They interact with youth and adults on a daily basis, making attempts to effect positive changes in these individuals' lives. They also regularly interact with these individuals' family members. They facilitate treatment groups for defendants who have been convicted of domestic violence crimes and sexual assault crimes. They provide cognitive behavioral groups to assist defendants who want to make positive life changes. They provide workshops to assist defendants in trying to find employment or retain their jobs. They collect restitution for victims. They collect fees, fines, and court surcharges. They conduct home contacts. They complete a minimum of 21 training hours each year to improve their ability to do their jobs. Our support staff process the checks that are sent to victims and courts from the monies that we collect. They answer the phones and process the mail. They process our bills and payroll and help in the preparation of our budgets. The job of a probation officer isn't usually a physically demanding one, but it is a mentally and emotionally challenging job. Officers are constantly trying to think, trying to stay at least one step ahead of the individuals they are supervising so as to head off any potential poor decisions. There's a cumulative stress on officers that comes from listening to the myriad assortment of problems that the defendants, principals, and respondents have in their lives. Contacts with these individuals can go for up to 10 years. We have sex offenders with 10-year probation sentences, and some of them have been on for that long. POs become quasi-member of the family. I remember years ago when I was in the grocery store, ran into a person that I was supervising, and here comes the whole family. Hi, Bob, how you doing? You know, because I'd been to their house so much, you know, it kind of felt like I was part of their family. There have been many studies about how stress affects police officers, but very little studies about how it affects probation officers. Thankfully, our field is starting to address this issue, and more focus is being placed on officer wellness. Bail reform is emboldening criminals, which adds to supervision problems. Despite all of this, our staff continues to perform their jobs as well as they can. They want to make positive impacts on people's lives. If you have contact with a probation department employee, please take a minute, thank them for doing their jobs well. It will mean a lot to them. And I will finish with one story. One of my officers told me that there's an individual that she was supervising on probation, and he said to her, you know, you're the first person that's really ever taken an interest in my life. And that's the thing I think that keeps us going when we're dealing with all the issues, is we can make an impact even on one person's life. We've done something. So thank you.
Don't run away. Don't run away. Thanks, Bob. And I won't ramble. I've got it written down. But I do want to, on behalf of this board, honestly thank you and your department. We know that the stories like the one you shared where you've impacted someone's life and the whole family comes up and says hello or thanks you, or someone, you know, that you've helped get back on the right path and overseen and helped them get there, is a good story. But I'm sure that there's a lot of stories that that we wouldn't want to hear about, and individuals that don't take so kindly to your services, I'm sure. But anyways, thanks to you, your department, and those employees on behalf of this board. I do have a proclamation, and this is pretrial probation and parole supervision week proclamation. Whereas community corrections is an essential part of the justice system, and whereas community corrections professionals uphold the law with dignity while recognizing the right of the public to be safeguarded from criminal activity. And whereas community corrections professionals are responsible for supervising adult and juvenile offenders in the community, and whereas community corrections professionals are trained professionals who provide services and referrals for offenders, and whereas community corrections professionals work in partnership with community agencies and groups, and whereas community corrections professionals promote prevention, intervention, and advocacy, and whereas community corrections professionals provide services, support, and protection for victims, and whereas community corrections professionals advocate community and restorative justice, and whereas community corrections professionals are a true force for positive change in their communities. Now therefore, I, Curtis W. Crandall, Chairman of the Allegheny County Board of Legislators, do hereby proclaim July 18th through the 24th, 2021 as pretrial probation and parole supervision week. Thank you, Bob, so much. Thank you.
On your desk is the report of interfund transfers and tax bill corrections approved by the county administrator in June. Pursuant to Article 11 of the New York State Real Property Tax Law, County Treasurer Terry Ross filed a certificate of withdrawal of delinquent tax lien for property in the town of Bolivar in my office on July 9th. We received correspondence from Andover Wetlands Kids Fishing Contest Coordinator Judy Scott inviting board members to attend the 30th Annual Kids Fishing Contest at Andover Ponds on August 21st and to participate in the awards ceremony at 2:45. County Administrator Carissa Knapp announced her appointment of Timothy Boyd as Deputy County Administrator 2. Chairman Crandall read the proclamation declaring July 18th through the 24th as pre-trial probation and parole supervision week.
Resolutions.
Resolution intro number 17121. Amending the comprehensive county procurement and acquisition policy of Allegheny County. This resolution is being offered by the Personnel Committee and has committee approval.
Motion is made by legislator Havey, seconded by legislator Harris. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Stockin?
Yes.
Mr. Barnes?
Aye.
Mr. Crandall?
Yes.
Mr. Curran?
Yes.
Mr. Decker?
Yes.
Mr. Dibble?
Yes.
Mr. Fanton? Mr. Graves?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Havey?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mrs. Hopkins?
Yes.
Mr. Ricky?
Yes.
Mrs. Root?
Yes.
14 ayes, 1 absent.
Resolution is passed.
Resolution intro number 17221. Approval of appropriation for district operations in agreement with Allegheny County Soil and Water Conservation District for the management of county reforestation areas, parks, and agricultural districts for a 3-year period, authorizing chairman to execute agreement. This resolution is being offered by the Resource Management Committee and has committee approval.
Motion is made by legislator Decker and seconded by legislator Graves. Discussion. Mr. Dibble, legislator Dibble.
Thank you. Yeah, they've been doing an excellent job on our county forest, including timbering, so thanks, Scott.
Scott's now grinning ear to ear back there. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Stockin?
Yes.
Mr. Barnes?
Aye.
Mr. Crandall?
Yes.
Mr. Curran?
Yes.
Mr. Decker?
Yes.
Mr. Dibble?
Yes.
Mr. Fanton?
Yes.
Mr. Graves?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Havey?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mrs. Hopkins?
Yes.
Mr. Ricky?
Yes.
Mrs. Root?
Yes.
14 ayes, 1 absent.
Resolution is passed.
Resolution intro number 17321, budget transfer within county administrator accounts. This resolution is being offered by the Ways and Means Committee and has committee approval.
Motion is made by legislator Stockin, seconded by legislator Fanton. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Stockin?
Yes.
Mr. Barnes?
Aye.
Mr. Crandall?
Yes.
Mr. Curran?
Yes.
Mr. Decker?
Yes.
Mr. Dibble?
Yes.
Mr. Fanton?
Yes.
Mr. Graves?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Havey?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mrs. Hopkins?
Yes.
Mr. Ricky?
Yes.
Mrs. Root?
Yes.
14 ayes, 1 absent.
Resolution is passed.
Resolution intro number 17421, approval of 1-year renewal of agreement with the State University of New York College of Technology at Alfred to provide assistance for the development and implementation of an economic and industrial development program for Allegheny County. This resolution is being offered by the Planning and Economic Development Committee and has committee approval.
Motion is made by legislator Root, seconded by legislator Barnes. Discussion?
I'd like to,
Legislator Ricky?
yes, thank you. Due to the fact I have way more questions than answers, I'd like to table this resolution.
It's a motion to table.
Yes. With a roll call vote, please
Is
do.
there a second for the tabling of this?
Mr. Chairman,
I
I'll
am not-
second the motion.
Motion to table is seconded by legislator Graves. And you request a roll call vote, Mr. Ricky, did I
Yes,
hear?
please.
And there is no discussion on the tabling, so we'll have roll call for tabling this resolution.
Mr. Stockin,
No.
Mr. Barnes,
No.
Mr. Crandall,
No.
Mr. Curran,
Yes.
Mr. Decker,
No.
Mr. Dibble,
Yes.
Mr. Fanton,
No.
Mr. Graves,
Yes.
Mr. Harris,
No.
Mr. Havey,
Yes.
Mr. Healy,
No.
Mrs. Hopkins,
No.
Mr. Ricky,
Yes.
Mrs. Root.
No.
5 ayes, 9 noes, 1 absent.
Motion to table this resolution is defeated. Discussion on the resolution? Roll call?
Mr. Stockin,
Yes.
Mr. Barnes,
Yes.
Mr. Crandall,
Yes.
Mr. Curran,
No.
Mr. Decker,
Yes.
Mr. Dibble,
No.
Mr. Fanton,
Yes.
Mr. Graves,
No.
Mr. Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Havey,
No.
Mr. Healy,
Yes.
Mrs. Hopkins,
Yes.
Mr. Ricky,
No.
Mrs. Root.
Yes.
9 ayes, 5 noes, 1 absent.
Resolution is passed.
Resolution intro number 17521, approval of agreement with First Transit Incorporated to lease capital equipment for the public transportation system, authorizing the chairman of the board to sign said agreement. This resolution is being offered by the Ways and Means Committee and has committee approval.
Moved by legislator Stockin, seconded by legislator Fanton. Discussion? Legislator Dibble?
Yeah, First Transit provides an excellent bus system for our county, just thanks that it's here. Thank you.
Further discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Stockin,
Yes.
Mr. Barnes,
Aye.
Mr. Crandall,
Yes.
Mr. Curran,
Yes.
Mr. Decker,
Yes.
Mr. Dibble, Mr. Fanton, Mr. Graves,
Yes.
Mr. Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Havey,
Yes.
Mr. Healy,
Yes.
Mrs. Hopkins,
Yes.
Mr. Ricky,
Yes.
Mrs. Root.
Yes.
14 ayes, 1 absent.
Resolution is passed.
Resolution intro number 17621, approval of agreement with First Transit Incorporated to lease capital equipment for the public transportation system, authorizing the chairman of the board to sign said agreement. This resolution is being offered by the Ways and Means Committee and has committee approval.
Motion is made by legislator Stockin, seconded by legislator Fanton. Discussion? Legislator Dibble?
Question for County Administrator, just wondering how the bus stop shelters are coming along.
I believe that they've been ordered and we're just waiting to install some of the new ones. So.
Thank you.
Further discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Stockin,
Yes.
Mr. Barnes,
Aye.
Mr. Crandall,
Yes.
Mr. Curran,
Yes.
Mr. Decker,
Yes.
Mr. Dibble,
Yes.
Mr. Fanton,
Yes.
Mr. Graves,
Yes.
Mr. Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Havy,
Yes.
Mr. Healy,
Yes.
Mrs. Hopkins,
Yes.
Mr. Ricky,
Yes.
Mrs. Root.
Yes.
14 ayes, 1 absent.
Resolution is passed.
Resolution intro number 17721. Approval of annual software agreement with ClearGov Incorporated and transfer of funds. This resolution is being offered by the Ways and Means Committee and has committee approval.
Motion is made by legislator Stockin, seconded by legislator Fanton. Discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Stockin,
Yes.
Mr. Barnes,
Aye.
Mr. Crandall,
Yes.
Mr. Curran,
Yes.
Mr. Decker,
Yes.
Mr. Dibble,
Yes.
Mr. Fanton,
Yes.
Mr. Graves,
Yes.
Mr. Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Havy,
Yes.
Mr. Healy,
Yes.
Mrs. Hopkins,
Yes.
Mr. Ricky,
Yes.
Mrs. Root.
Yes.
14 ayes, 1 absent.
Resolution is passed.
Resolution intro number 17821, appointment of Thomas A. Minor as county attorney, amending the Section 4 salary schedule to reflect the salary of the new county attorney. This resolution is being offered by the Ways and Means Committee and has committee approval. It was not pre-filed and it will require a 2/3 vote to consider from the floor.
Motion on the 2/3, made by legislator Harris, seconded by legislator Curran. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. On the resolution itself, motion is made by legislator Stockin, seconded by legislator Fanton. Discussion? Legislator Dibble?
Having worked with Tom Miner in the past as county attorney, I'm sure he'll do an excellent job. Thank you.
Legislator Healy?
Yes, I just would like to echo Mr. Dibble's sentiments and also thank you, Mr. Minor, for being willing to come back and assist us at this time. Thank you.
Further discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Stockin,
Yes.
Mr. Barnes,
Aye.
Mr. Crandall,
Yes.
Mr. Curran,
Yes.
Mr. Decker,
Yes.
Mr. Dibble,
Yes.
Mr. Fanton,
Yes.
Mr. Graves,
Yes.
Mr. Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Havy,
Yes.
Mr. Healy,
Yes.
Mrs. Hopkins,
Yes.
Mr. Ricky,
Yes.
Mrs. Root.
Yes.
14 ayes, 1 absent.
Resolution is passed. I didn't want to say anything and sway the vote one way or the other, Tom, but since it's been made and unanimously supported, I certainly want to agree with the comments that were made and thank you for dipping into your retirement time and coming back and helping us out on this basis. So thank you so much.
Resolution intro number 17921, setting the salary for the position of senior attorney in the Department of Social Services. This resolution is being offered by the Human Services, Personnel, and Ways and Means Committees. It was not pre-filed and it will require a 2/3 vote to consider from the floor.
Motion on the 2/3 is made by legislator Decker, seconded by legislator Hopkins. All in favor of that, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. On the resolution itself, motion is made by legislator Hopkins, seconded by legislator Decker. Discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, legislator Harris.
thank you. Question for the county administrator. The resolution, the amount in the resolution falls outside of the original request to create and fill.
That's correct. The original request was for a full-time attorney, and we're going to fill the position part-time for now.
Thank you.
Further discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Stockin,
Yes.
Mr. Barnes,
Aye.
Mr. Crandall,
Yes.
Mr. Curran,
Yes.
Mr. Decker,
Yes.
Mr. Dibble, Mr. Fanton,
Yes.
Mr. Graves,
Yes.
Mr. Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Havy,
Yes.
Mr. Healy,
Yes.
Mrs. Hopkins,
Yes.
Mr. Ricky,
Yes.
Mrs. Root.
Yes.
14 ayes, 1 absent.
Resolution is passed.
Resolution intro number 18021. Acceptance of funds from the New York State Tourism Matching Funds Grant for Allegheny County. This resolution is being offered by the Planning and Economic Development Committee and has committee approval. It was not pre-filed and it will require a 2/3 vote to consider from the floor.
Motion on the 2/3, made by legislator Root, seconded by legislator Curran. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. On the resolution itself, motion is made by legislator Root, seconded by legislator Barnes. Discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes. Legislator Havy?
I would like permission to abstain from this vote, please.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move that Mr. Havy be allowed to.
Motion is made by legislator Graves and seconded by legislator Curran for legislator Havy to abstain from this vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Further discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Stockin,
Yes.
Mr. Barnes,
Aye.
Mr. Crandall,
Yes.
Mr. Curran,
Yes.
Mr. Decker,
Yes.
Mr. Dibble,
Yes.
Mr. Fanton,
Yes.
Mr. Graves,
Yes.
Mr. Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Havy,
Abstain, please.
Mr. Healy,
Yes.
Mrs. Hopkins,
Yes.
Mr. Ricky,
Aye.
Mrs. Root.
Yes.
13 ayes, 1 absent, 1 abstaining.
Resolution is passed. How would you like your audits?
Collectively and by totals, please.
Collectively and by totals, motion is made by legislator Stockin, seconded by legislator Fanton. All in favor of that, say aye.
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 Opposed? Carried.
General government support, 150,979.98. Education, 23,626.88. Public safety, 57,094.58. Health, 163,988.74. Bus transportation, 2,496. Economic assistance and opportunity, 613,894.48. Culture and recreation, 1,610.28. Home and community services, 14,597.58. General fund totaled 1,028,288.52. Payroll and taxes totaled 1,100,354.88. Capital funds totaled 761,036.78. Other funds totaled 692,852.75 for a grand total of 3,582,532.93.
Motion to pay the bills, made by legislator Root, seconded by legislator Dibble. Discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Stockin,
Yes.
Mr. Barnes,
No, because I've never gotten a satisfactory answer as to why we can't round it off to the nearest dollar.
Mr. Crandall,
Yes.
Mr. Curran,
Yes.
Mr. Decker,
Yes.
Mr. Dibble,
Yes.
Mr. Fanton,
Yes.
Mr. Graves,
Yes.
Mr. Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Havy,
Yes.
Mr. Healy,
Yes.
Mrs. Hopkins,
Yes.
Mr. Ricky,
Yes.
Mrs. Root. Yes. 13 ayes, 1 no, 1 absent.
Resolution is passed. And so you don't have to continue to vote no, Mr. Barnes. I think that was answered. I think our treasurer commented on that one time. I don't know if you can clarify it anymore, Madam Treasurer, but I don't want to see a no vote only for nickels and dimes.
I think I have to have the authority to pay it as it's written, which I believe is by the cents. So the bills come in with the cents, and if you were to approve me paying more than that, what would I do with the difference?
I still don't understand, but I'll have to talk to you in private.
Yep, that's fine.
We want you to understand so that you can vote yes with the rest of us on paying our bills. Keep the lights on. Any further items or action or discussion before we adjourn this meeting? Mr. Dibble?
Just want to remind Karen will be at the Fair Board at next meeting.
It's true.
Host. Mr. Chairman, as it appears there's no further business to conduct, I move we adjourn.
Motion to adjourn made by Legislator Graves, seconded by Legislator Decker. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.